investigation. But we've got to talk about what Candace Owens said in response to Turning Point USA, saying all they said, offering her a chance to come onto their platform. She's ready to go. And from what we've seen from Candace so far, this is no surprise. I'm going to let Candace cook because she's got a lot to say when it comes to this upcoming meeting. She was actually ready to meet with Turning Point today, but they said, we'll just wait. Give us a couple weeks to prepare. What? Check it out.
What can I say other than we went max? Pause, reflect. I'm proud of everybody. I'm proud of the world. Every single person who was in my inbox giving me tips, the people inside of Turning Point USA who were leaking, the donors that wrote public letters, the donors that didn't write public letters but sent us messages encouraging us to keep going. Today feels like a win because guess what? It forced Turning Point USA to finally respond, and that was the entire point, okay? That has been the point of refusing to let up even 1 second in this investigation. They wanted to simply be able to eulogize Charlie Kirk at a big memorial event, and then they wanted us to simply move on. And we didn't do that, okay? So yeah, we should celebrate the fact that we kept up the pressure, that we insisted that we have answers, that even in this tremendous culture of ADHD and everyone's constantly being distracted by their iPhones, that we kept the focus, okay? Turning Point.
So much so that Blake even said to Candace, we let some things go because, Charlie was a good friend to Candace, and we thought Candace would be a good friend to Charlie. But she didn't do that, so now we have to respond. What a weird thing to say from Blake Neff. What do you mean Candace you thought she was going to be a good friend to Charlie? That's exactly what she's doing. She's saying, hey guys, a lot of what we're seeing doesn't make sense. Charlie's gone and nobody's giving us answers. So maybe we start with the people who are around him. What do you guys think about this? Why was there a Doge department being created? Why did Charlie text this? Come on, man. That's being a good friend to me. I want a friend like
Everyone's constantly being distracted by their iPhones, that we kept the focus, okay? Turning Point is going to commit to a live streamed event where they are apparently going to answer all of these lingering questions. And I would say these were pretty basic questions right out of the gate. Why they didn't do that right out of the gate, nobody knows. We can hear them, their explanation for why they didn't in just a moment, because they sent Blake Neff out. Blake Neff, by the way, is the producer of The Charlie Kirk Show. Now he is kind of the rotating talent of The Charlie Kirk Show. He was already featured with Charlie on the show, so that's not unusual. But I think we probably anticipated that Andrew Colvett, who is the tpusa spokesperson, would have been the person to deliver this message. Maybe in theory, that should have been his job. Maybe he's traveling. The point is, we got Blake Neff, and I want to say, just to reiterate, that I have always maintained that whatever is going on at Turning Point USA, I have not felt that Blake Neff is one of the bad guys, okay? I just have never gotten that particular vibe from him. I believe that when he speaks, he believes that he is telling the truth. And maybe that's why they want him in front of the camera. He's been the only person that has been responding in a way that feels even remotely authentic when he defends the actions of Mikey McCoy on that day. I sense that he believes that he is telling the truth. Anyways, let's listen to what Blake Neff had to say in its entirety. It's not going to feel organic. Obviously, he's reading from a piece of paper. This has probably been reviewed 12 times by many different lawyers because that's how it works at big organizations and companies. But I don't fault him. That will pause at certain moments because I do want to be able to respond throughout it. It's a bit long, but I want to give them my platform, as I always have made that offer to. So here is Blake Neff.
Let's skip ahead.
Ever since Charlie's murder.
Okay, so first and foremost, I actually never said that she helped plan the event. I said it was suspicious that Mikey McCoy's wife, that we never found out who did plan the event, that was one of the answers that we wanted to know. And I said that she works in events, still was not clear on what happened. Regarding Mikey McCoy, I think the entire world believes that his actions are suspicious because we have eyes, and you don't get to wiggle out of that by pretending that us playing the words of his own father, Rob McCoy, who I think is highly suspicious in all of this. He has a suspicious background. We played his own words as he tried to sanitize someone who spent time in prison for being a sexual deviant, right? For trying to take photos of young girls. I don't think he's a good guy, and you're not going to make us forget those things because you are trying to pretend that Mikey's actions were totally normal that day. They weren't. That's why I didn't make the public feel that way, okay? I may have voiced how they felt, which everyone else is refusing to do, but I do believe that Mikey McCoy should have to answer for who he had on the phone right when the shot went off. So yeah, his father, his own father, is the one that spoke about Charlie's notebooks and spoke about how Mikey McCoy was talented. And it was Mikey McCoy who then jumped on Liberty University's stage for an event that was scheduled for Charlie Kirk. So there you go. That's our perspective. And I'm going to stand by it. Let's keep it rolling.
And again, we've heard this entire statement from Blake. So we're going to keep it moving through this. If y'all missed it, make sure you go back and check out the video where we talked about that and heard Blake's statement.
Details suggested a, quote, inside job.
It was unusual. That's a fact. And you can quote me on that because I worked for Turning Point USA and I went on every tour since 2019. And typically those events are decided at least the semester before. This came together very quickly. It is unusual. And I don't know why you think that you are going to be able to disprove that notion when I have the emails to support that claim.
And not even that. So much is being said about Candace and they're acting like she wasn't a part of the organization. I'm glad that she made this point. They're acting like Candace doesn't know what's going on. Candace was on the outside. She's shown receipts of her conversations with Charlie Kirk. She was still involved and technically on staff at Turning Point. She wasn't a stranger, guys.
Let's keep it rolling.
She has claimed that foreign aircraft have followed Erica Kirk around the country and that Turning Point has lied about this happening.
Definitely never said Turning Point lied because you never responded. So that doesn't actually make any sense. And this is why it's not good to have lawyers write things out because sometimes they're not so detail oriented. What we did was we showed at first that when I plotted these strange Egyptian jets that they were following Charlie. And that was a concern because I wondered if they were tracking Charlie. We then obviously realized that they were tracking tpusa faith events and that many more times they were following and perhaps tracking Erica. You should be concerned about that. We find it odd that rather than being concerned or trying to get answers to why a foreign military jet would be on the ground during a time when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, you're upset with us for asking questions about these jets.
Exactly.
Let's keep rolling.
She has accused us of lying about Charlie wanting Erica to take over for him if he died.
Never happened. That is not a quotation. That is just them saying that. So let's keep rolling.
She has suggested Charlie's security team intentionally denied him first aid after the shooting to ensure that he died.
When you say suggested, it means that they are interpreting my words. What I said is another fact. They did not issue him first aid. When he fell down, there was nobody who pulled out any gauze and tried to stop the bleeding. And they've admitted to that. In a sit down with Sean Ryan, Brian Harpole said it was because of the severity of the injury. I'm sorry, again, that we noticed something that stood out as unusual given the expertise and the amount of money that he was paying that supposed to be an elite team. Let's keep rolling.
And I hate to keep going on this, but Candace is right. We all saw this. Even before Candace started talking about this, we watched it on the channel and I saw them just throw Charlie to the ground, carrying him away. And I was just like, what are they doing? Like they're just, get him to the hospital. Nobody's trying to stop the bleeding. Nobody's trying to keep him conscious. My goodness, they were able to so quickly assess how severe his injury, I guess we would call it, was that they just said, just let him bleed. Let's get him to the hospital. That makes no sense.
She has raised suspicions about the head of our technical team because he took an SD card out of a camera. She has spread absurd claims that Tyler Boyer, who we just had on the show, sexually abuses male interns.
Okay, so yes, the SD card thing is unbelievably suspicious. It's not something that you would do. Neither would you just run up onto a grassy knoll and record yourself. Again, these are unusual actions, and rather than trying to pretend like it's normal to record a selfie video of yourself and to prematurely announce that somebody is dead, maybe you should answer why all of that took place, because you guys told verifiable lies about why that took place. Because don't forget, Andrew Colvett sat next to you and said it was because people were stealing. If people were stealing, you probably would want to grab the very expensive cameras and not the SD card for an event that was being live streamed. Regarding Tyler Boyer, I'm so glad we're going to do this live streamed because I'm happy to present to you the exact name of the intern. And I didn't say that he abused him. I didn't say it was not consensual. I said that he likes younger boys. I don't mean like younger as in they're not of the legal age. I'm just saying they're a lot younger than him. And Yeah, I can give you
Yikes.
the exact name of the intern that he hooked up with. That person was not at Turning Point USA, but I can also give you more than that, as well as people that are currently
not
working for
playing.
Turning Point USA who said that Tyler Boyer, and these are young men, tried to hook up with them after some events. So I'm glad we're going to live stream that. Keep going.
She has suggested
We'll
that
see.
tpusa faith-affiliated pastors, like theologian Frank Turek, who we'll have on in a moment, and Pastor Rob McCoy, are part of a military, quote, infiltration of Turning Point, either because they are veterans or because they have family members who are.
Yeah, so I do believe the Calvary Chapel, their history with Chuck Smith, the evidence that it was a militant CIA effort to infiltrate the Christian faith and to tie the Christian faith to the political ideology of Zionism. I think there's a lot of evidence for that, and I'm happy to discuss that in a broader debate. I do think that things at Turning Point USA became a bit problematic when you started to, I would say, almost hijack genuine Christian faith and sort of roll it into this idea that you must support Israel in order to be a Christian. That's kind of floating into more opinion, but I think well backed by the facts of the founding of the Calvary Chapel Church during the decade of the 60s, where the CIA was really just spiking the ball on Christians in general. Let's keep going.
Even if not everyone has been named specifically, though,
obliterate
Candace
these
has
guys.
effectively tarred everyone here with complicity in Charlie's death by repeatedly saying he was, quote, betrayed by, quote, everyone.
Sorry,
He
that was a
was.
dream that I had. And it is also a realization that it has been months. People at Turning Point USA are in possession of text messages and the day before Charlie died, in which he wrote out to you, and not just to people that work at Turning Point USA, but also security guards, that he thought that they were going to kill him tomorrow, explicitly. I find it highly unusual that you wouldn't share that information at all, or that you would sit by and be quiet, or at some points attack people that are trying to explore who they is, because I don't think anybody believes that Charlie thought that a trans furry kid who had never been on UVU's campus was going to kill him tomorrow. And your silence during moments when people are lying, like Josh Hammer, when he said, hey, this never happened, Charlie never blinked on Israel, makes you all look very, very suspicious. Lies are only necessary, okay, when you are covering something. And if you are covering the truth, you are betraying Charlie. So I stand by that. Let's keep going.
And that's fair. Why are they lying? We saw this man Candace Owens is talking about, in case y'all didn't know, that what happened, Josh Hammer said Candace Owens is lying about Charlie being out on Israel. Candace Owens saying that Charlie Kirk was maybe changing his stance on how he felt about Israel. It's a lie. It wasn't true. Guess what Candace Owens did? She saw what was going on. She said, that's interesting. Here's a printout of a group chat, Josh Hammer, that you were actually in, where Charlie Kirk said, I'm getting sick of this pressure I'm receiving from a lot of our Jewish donors. They want me to go a certain way. I'm thinking about changing my stance on Israel. Basically the opposite of what this man said. Candace Owens showed that he was wrong, that he was lying. If you're going to speak, you need to give answers.
She has said Charlie's murder, quote, had to be approved by Charlie's friends, and then suggested those friends might have her murdered too for, quote, knowing the truth.
So you notice that's like a Snopes tactic. When he says the quote, it's actually not a full quotation. I never said that, obviously, in the context that he put it in, that Charlie's friends, quote, had to know he was going to be murdered. Did I say the sentence, had to know he was going to be murdered? Perhaps, but we're going to need to hear the full sentence because you're trying to context it in a way that is just untrue. And I don't think it's necessary. If you're willing to have a conversation that you need to lie about anything that I've said, people have watched the show. They know exactly what I've said. And I tend to stand by what I've said. And I do stand by everything that I've said. Keep going.
She has made claims of financial impropriety and fraud at Turning Point, adding up into the millions of dollars, which, again, is not true. Charlie made sure the organization was audited by a third party every year. He personally reviewed and he signed off on every expense report, and literally every single bill paid by the organization, down to a single United States dollar. We have never missed a 990
Impossible.
deadline.
Impossible.
Okay, so immorality, like financial impropriety, does not necessarily mean that you committed true financial fraud. There's definitely financial impropriety at the company. I would say that if you are representing yourself as a charity and what you're actually doing is evaporating millions of dollars into various LLCs that have your name on it, that would be financial impropriety, right? Like you could say, I'm a contractor on this LLC and that LLC. I'm not doing anything illegal, but it's inappropriate. It's improper. Most people are not able to read those forms and won't understand what's happening to the $80 million. And I think that those questions are, of course, valid and that you guys should have no issues answering them. I am struck by the fact that you're still trying to conflate an annual audit with Charlie's explicit request to put together a Doge department 7 days before he died. These are not the same. You know they're not the same. I know they're not the same. Okay, everyone knows that Doge is not the same as the audits that are required for 501c3s.
Exactly.
Conducting an internal audit, and having you still misrepresent that makes us uncomfortable. Address the Doge. That's got nothing to do with anything other than Charlie, right? Charlie felt that this needed to happen, and inside sources at your own company say it was because he didn't know where the money was coming from or how quickly and where exactly the money was being evaporated to. That passes the vibe check in terms of what Doge is about, because, of course, Charlie could not have been establishing Doge for the last 5 years because that's a very new concept as of 2025, something that Trump put into place with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, right? So, yeah, you're still being dishonest, but carry on.
Candace has made other stranger allegations involving French paratroopers in maroon shirts, Egyptian Air Force planes flying out of Provo, Utah, and potential underground assassins traveling through unseen tunnels. At one point in early November, she started wildly throwing suspicion on members of Utah Valley's soccer team for wearing hoodies. I could go on. There is always something new coming up, and none of it ever pans out because, from the start, there has been nothing there.
Okay, so no matter how many times you keep pretending there's nothing there with the Egyptian planes, the whole internet understands that there's something there with the Egyptian planes, especially because you keep pretending like it's not weird. Like you're just like, it's not weird. No, this is normal. It's totally fine that these Egyptian planes, and also, by the way, today it broke that the Saudi king was on this plane at some point, 2023. We'll get to that later. And you guys are like, this is totally normal. This is just what happens at UVU. People just lay over into Wilmington, do things. It's just so foolish. You guys have got to stop the gaslighting if you think your organization is going to survive. I mean, some of that stuff is just untrue. Saying that I went after somebody for wearing a green hoodie is not true at all. We never even covered the green hoodie people on this show. I shared a picture when somebody asked for a picture because they were trying to investigate and identify everyone who was there, which is valid. And the person wearing the green hoodie was not even upset about it. He responded. So that has nothing to do with me whatsoever. And by the way, it would probably feel better to the public if you guys were the ones that were asking questions about who was there on that day. I completely stand by what I said about the people that are wearing maroon shirts. They are going to, I will guarantee you, represent a military unit somewhere. I'm very close to figuring out exactly which military unit that was. Again, trying to gaslight us and pretend we're conspiracy theorists or like that's stupid. Not a good long-term strategy for Turning Point USA. Carry on.
And blind.
The attacks and allegations from Candace are either lies or they are innuendos thrown around with a total reckless disregard for the truth so that Candace can manipulate and string along an audience of people who don't realize they are being played. Instead of being able to grieve properly after one of the most heinous murders in American history, a murder many of us had to witness, my friends have had to endure harassment from people who have gotten whipped up by what Candace is saying. In fact, I would say we have suffered more harassment from these people than we have from Antifa supporters who overtly celebrate Charlie's murder. And just like a lot of those Antifa members, many of these people take this delight in how gross and unpleasant they can be. What our friends have had to endure is not funny, and it's not insignificant. It is evil. I have seen it.
Here we go.
Okay, conflating people that are trying to figure out who murdered Charlie Kirk with like Antifa is actually objectively funny. That's an unforced error. They should not have included that in the statement. Somebody in that room was like, should we say that? Should we not? And somebody said, no, we shouldn't say that. And then somebody else in the room said, no, we should, let's keep it in. That second person was wrong. That should have been struck from the statement. It's very silly, okay? It's very silly to attack your own audiences who are concerned and your own donors who are concerned and say, you're Antifa if you don't accept this absurd Fed slop. If you're not gonna drink the Fed slop, then you are Antifa. Just not a good idea whatsoever, okay? That is not what's happening here. You are not the victim. Charlie is, actually. He's dead. And to pretend like you are too aggrieved to be able to answer the questions makes entirely no sense. Obviously, if you were actually under a real amount of stress, if you actually were deeply upset that people had you on a list of suspects or thought that you were suspicious, you would just clarify things instantly, immediately. It's so easy. It's free. If someone said, Candace, what were you doing when Charlie Kirk was shot? I'd be like, I was sitting down at my table prepping my show. Like, the question doesn't offend me because I had nothing to do with Charlie dying, okay? This is a psychological technique that is failing. It is failing for you. And you're upset because you thought that with time, with the passage of time, people would let the story go, and they didn't. And these reasons that he's about to list for why they didn't respond and answer any questions are beyond ridiculous. Let's take a listen.
For months, we have received hundreds, thousands, I suspect, emails and calls asking us to respond.
Yeah.
People have wanted us to invite Candace on the show. But for a long time, our approach was to say nothing. We did that for several reasons. First, we thought that her prevarications were so absurd that nobody would believe them. We shouldn't have to answer questions about secret tunnels or Egyptian Air Force planes. That sort of thing is just, it's beneath contempt to respond to. The second reason we've said so little, though, is because there's a good rule of thumb, which Charlie followed. Do not feed the trolls. Focus on the mission. Reviving America, uplifting young people, making heaven crowded. Don't give air to people who want to tear you down and sow discord. Lastly, we didn't respond because Charlie always viewed Candace as a friend, and we were holding out hope that she would return that friendship and stop what she was doing.
Stop it, man. This is the part I hate. We were hoping she would return that friendship and do exactly what we say and what we want. Disgusting, man. I cannot believe Blake said this, or as Candace says, whoever wrote this. Wow. Telling Candace she shouldn't be able to ask questions or she's a bad friend to Charlie.
Doing.
Yikes.
Okay, so the first thing he says there is we didn't respond because it's beneath us. Like, that's just not the right attitude. I mean, that is an elitist attitude. It is beneath us to respond to the very people who showed up in scores because they were so moved by Charlie's assassination that they all poured into the Staples Center, right? And poured their tears out and made videos and donated. It is beneath us to not to then respond to questions that you have that are meaningful, because we just think it's so stupid that you would suggest that the feds are involved in an assassination. That's never happened in American history. What? So that's a ridiculous thing. The second thing he says there is Charlie always said, don't feed the trolls. Well, that flies into the face of what he says thereafter, where he says Candace and Charlie were friends. So I'm not a troll, okay? I'm not a troll. I'm not trolling. I'm not someone who's hated Turning Point and wanted Turning Point to fail. I'm actually the exact opposite of that. And that's why the people believe in me and they trust me, because they feel that I'm the only one that's acting right in this situation. Who wouldn't want to have every stone unturned if they cared about somebody? Who wouldn't want to have every question answered? Who wouldn't be immediately suspicious to see Egyptian military jets? Who wouldn't go, why the hell were these jets around Turning Point way before, years before Charlie's assassination? Who is on these jets? Instead, you're mentioning the Egyptian planes for the fourth time. So I would like to recommend everybody that is watching this to figuring out what the hell's going on with these Egyptian planes, because they're nervous about them, okay? They're mentioning so many times, they're trying to give the vibe that this is so crazy. No, they are fearful. The Egyptian planes hold the key, and that's obvious even in Blake Neff's statement. But yeah, I am not a troll, okay? And people followed what felt to them as authenticity, and it was not you. They were not getting that from Charlie's closest friends. Why is that? They weren't getting that from Charlie's most loved pastors. Why is that? Don't blame me for the bad energy that you exuded, okay? Don't blame me for the fact that you didn't pass the gut check with the public. That's why you're doing this, okay? That is why you are doing this, because your strategy failed. In fact, this is your old school turning point before they put on the faith pants. This is your old school turning point lesson in what the free markets are. The free markets saw what you were offering, right? And they saw what I was offering. You were offering, we should accept this and move on. And I was saying, we need to investigate this. And the free markets said no to Turning Point USA.
Wow.
Anyways, let him take this away in terms of what he thought, I guess, was the best way to be a friend to Charlie Kirk. What did he think was the best way for them to show that they were friends with Charlie Kirk? Keep going, Blake.
But a week from now, it's going to be 3 months since Charlie's murder. Candace has not changed her behavior. She has continued to spread falsehoods about Charlie's friends, and she continues to concoct new ones about new people. She's using these falsehoods to enrich herself while dividing the conservative movement at an absolutely critical time for this country.
I have to applaud that audacity. I have to applaud it. You do. You have to applaud it.
It's sad, man.
These, excuse me here, but like, I'm trying not to swear. These men, okay, this company, these amazing lads over here have the audacity to accuse me of enriching myself when they were out there selling t-shirts, okay, of what Charlie died in to enrich themselves. Were they giving those t-shirts away for free at the Staples Centers? No, they were selling kit of what Charlie died in to the tune of $80 million plus that they made in the first 3 weeks, okay?
Wow.
They made their entire budget for the year in the first couple of weeks following Charlie's assassination. And they are attacking me with zero proof that I've made a single dollar off of Charlie's assassination. I did not sell a cup. I did not sell a mug, okay? All I did was do what I already do for a living, okay? I podcast and I investigate things. I investigate things that I feel passionate about. Sometimes it's Kamala's genealogy when she's saying she wants to be the president and things aren't making sense and I sense that she is lying. Sometimes it's Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds when they tried to destroy a man's life who's not even on my quote unquote political team. Sometimes it's Brigitte and why we are colluding with nations to cover the obvious fact that Brigitte was born a male. And this time it's personal and it's you. Do you want to know what all of these investigations have in common? Liars who lie and think that the public is too stupid to see through their lies. That is how we got into this, okay? I did not sell anything. You did that. You guys did that. You guys continued to do that. You guys wanted to just move on and to grift off of Charlie's legacy. I dedicated myself to figuring out who murdered him. So anyways.
Wow, shout out to Candace.
He does get to the point here, which is that they are willing to finally address things head on. So I will let Blake say that.
No, we heard enough from Blake. Candace just cooked him. If this debate actually does happen, or this Q&A, whatever we're gonna call it, it's gonna be really, 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 really bad for Turning Point USA, because there's a lot of questions they haven't answered. There's a lot of information that they're denying that has clear proof and has been shown. And Candace is going to hold their feet to the fire. Her friend was killed. She does not care about anybody's feelings. She doesn't care who is made uncomfortable. Questions are asked and they need to be answered. We're going to be here for it. We're going to talk about it. Shout out to Candace Owens and her quest for the truth. We're going to support it here. We're going to support her here. And we're going to continue to keep reporting on this because we've reviewed a lot of what happened the day Charlie Kirk was assassinated and beyond. Doesn't make sense. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments in the